Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to reflect on a short Twitter thread I was reading from an Ian Howes who was relaying the perception of the post-Brexit trade deal with Australia that Boris Johnson is pursuing with all haste, and consider not just why he's doing it so quickly, but why he's doing it at all. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So yeah, more thoughts on the Australia deal prompted by someone else's thoughts. So over the past few years, lots of people have been trying to explain that trade deals take years to negotiate. It takes years. Brexiteers claimed that we'd have the world banging our door down to get them, and we'd have them all in place the day we left the EU. Now, obviously we don't. That has not occurred. We currently have two trade deals negotiated, one with Japan and one with the EU. Soon, very likely a third with Australia, despite the fact that polls show this is opposed amongst the public. Any other trade deals that you may think we've arranged since Brexit have just been carryover deals. That is, these trade agreements were negotiated years ago whilst we were in the EU and when we were members, and those countries just agreed to keep the same conditions. They're literally copied and pasted. There's nothing different. So we've actually negotiated two trade deals so far. But that is still a far cry from what people argued, you might say. We said that they take years to negotiate. Well, we've negotiated two of them and with major economies inside of 1 year. Yes, this is true. But when experts said they take years, what they meant was it takes years to get a good trade deal. Obviously, if you are willing to just agree to the other side's starting position, there's no need for negotiation themselves. In fact, you can get a trade deal in a week. In fact, so eagerly are we signing up to trade agreements where we just give the other side everything they ask for. I gather Canada are now sniffing about. Canada had agreed a carryover deal with us, so we've got stuff in place, but they weren't that bothered about negotiating a wider agreement just yet. I mean, in the future, sure, but not just yet. But now that they've heard that we just agree to anything, they're a bit more interested. Maybe this is what the Brexiteers meant by having the world knocking our door down to get deals. Because in Boris Johnson's post-Brexit world, there are only trade deals. There's no good or bad deals, just deals. They're all great deals, of course. All that matters is getting those deals. Now, the haste with which we are pursuing the Australia deal is quite easy to explain. He wants a regular supply of good headlines. If he can get news out of yet another great new trade deal plastered across the front pages of the Mail and the Express, Brexit voters will keep thinking they did well, as opposed to making the biggest mistakes of their lives. Because let's face it, there is no other way of claiming any Brexit wins. Our trade has been hit badly. We're losing jobs left, right and centre. Northern Ireland is turning back the clock even more quickly than the rest of the UK. So he needs the trade deals. They're terrible. He doesn't care about that. Even, it seems, if it destroys a major tourist supporting industry like farming. But why is he pursuing these deals at all? I get why he's pursuing it quickly. Why at all? Boris Johnson and the Conservatives in general are caught in a bit of a Brexit trap. See, on the one hand, they claim to be exponents of free trade. But on the other hand, they don't really want free trade. Because free trade means free movement, for example. It means a few other things. But it means free movement. How could it not? How can you have free trade if traders are not free to move around the market selling their goods or services? So the Conservatives aren't really in favour of free trade. So how to pretend that you are? Well, given that the Conservatives need to claim that they're free trade nuts, but don't like any of the consequences of free trade, you try to strike free trade agreements with countries that are on the other side of the world. Because if you strike a trade agreement with Japan or Australia, you're not going to suddenly find a load of Japanese or Australian traders coming and going as they please around the UK. Because it's too far away, that's the thing. With trade across two massive oceans, you don't really notice the impact, either good or bad. So about this thread that I referenced at the start and haven't actually said a blind thing about yet, there were a few comments there that were of interest. So they noted that Australia has very experienced negotiators who have been dealing with China and the United States recently. Far from pushovers. In fact, the United States has some of the best negotiators in the world. So the point may be made there is Australia's negotiators have been forged in fire, essentially. Now, we have trade negotiators in the UK, of course we do, because even though the EU did our negotiating for us over the past couple of generations, well, we were part of it. So they use British negotiators as well as ones from other EU member states. But the people who with the experience and the expertise, Johnson's not interested in those. Take David Frost, for example. I mean, he's had experience of trade negotiations before Brexit, but nothing like what was needed to get a good deal. And indeed, it could be argued he couldn't have got a good deal anyway. You know, no one could have done with the time constraints placed upon the team by the government. But Johnson is certainly not going to be appointing people who keep trying to tell ministers that we need to spend years talking if we want to get a good deal. They don't have years. They have until the next general election. And I cannot describe just how much of a blow it was to Johnson not to be able to get his coveted US trade deal. He has been trying to compensate ever since and will big up absolutely anything. He even went on the telly last year using public resources to advertise Australian biscuits in a vain attempt to persuade us that all the pain of Brexit would be worthwhile if we could just get a trade deal with someone at the other end of the world so that we can buy biscuits that we can already buy for a bit less money, but they'll still have no jokes on them. And another interesting comment was about the time delay for the terms to take effect. So it's been reported, the Australian deal completely knackers British farming. Of course it does. Our farming might produce high quality goods, but it's not efficient. Even with the transport costs factored in, we cannot compete with the intensively farmed Australian products. We'd be sunk. But reports suggested a 15-year phasing in period. So we'd sign the deal, be locked into it, but we wouldn't actually see the consequences until Boris Johnson was long gone from office. Even if he wanted to be a long-standing Prime Minister, he'd still be long gone. Some other poor sod would have to pick up the pieces of his mess. Sounds about right. But Australia won't be as keen to wait 15 years, and their farmers certainly won't. And they know we're desperate. What this guy is suggesting, I do not know whether this will be the case or not, but he's certainly suggesting that we will have to drop that long phase in a hurry to sign on the dotted line. The point was also made about Johnson's obsession with the Pacific in general. So he's keen for us to join the CPTPP. Absolute madness that we wanted to leave one massive trading bloc on our doorstep and now join another one half a world away. And there's no political or economic gain here. He's doing it as a promise about the future that never comes. So they keep telling us that we just compensate for lost trade with Europe, which they can't deny, by trading more with Asia. It's like, what? I mean, apart from the horrendous environmental cost of doing this, if it were possible, it's not actually possible. But they need to keep the lie alive. We left the EU based on the lie that we won't have to follow other people's rules outside the bloc. Nonsense. We actually have to follow even more rules now. And not just in the EU. We have to follow more EU rules now because there's all the EU rules that apply to third countries that didn't apply to us before. Holidaymakers and traders are starting to see the consequences of that. But around the world, at least we made the rules that we had to follow as EU members. Not anymore. We still follow the rules in Europe and elsewhere in the world, but we now have little say in them. I mean, we could have had a little say in them if we wanted to wait the normal 10 or 20 years for our trade deals, but no, we're in a hurry. And then there's the diplomatic side of things. The government are spending a lot of money on a new yacht. It was supposed to be a royal yacht named after Prince Philip, but the palace has knocked that idea on the head. They know this is a very bad move. But the government claim that the sight of such a yacht will impress the natives who will then start giving us what we ask for in trade deals. Yeah. On the contrary, there will be some in these countries that we're courting who might relish getting one over on us. Thanks to our imperial days. See, this is what the Brexiteers don't seem to understand. It's what Boris Johnson doesn't seem to understand. People are impressed with our imperial history. Some people are a bit annoyed about it. And it's thanks to our imperial days, something Brexit supporters seem to want to recapture without having the faintest notion of what that actually means. There's such a lot of historical baggage attached to us around the world. Commonwealth countries like Australia were not entirely happy when we joined the EEC because it meant, okay, we moved closer to Europe, our major trading partners, made absolute sense, but further away from the likes of Australia. Agreeing a trade deal that helps them but is also deeply damaging to us might be very welcome for people with long memories there. So we're moving further towards markets who will not buy very much from us, but will still sell a lot more to us because they can produce their goods more efficiently. and further away from markets where it is realistic to grow our trade in a sustainable way. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.